mystically talented Alexis Reeves, and me, your guy, D.E. Riley. Hey guys, welcome. We have a show for you tonight. This is gonna blow your socks off. We have a very, very special guest tonight. Um, Let me give you a little background on this guy because this is something else. Number one, he's the owner and tour guide at Spooked in Seattle Ghost Tours. Number two, he works at a Ghost, which stands for Advanced Ghost Hunters of Seattle Tacoma. Number three, he's a former paranormal investigator at Dead Air Paranormal Radio. And number four, he's worked at the Research Institute of the Paranormal. Now, currently, he can be seen in a documentary called Parasense: The Naked Experiments. It's currently streaming on Tubi, Vudu, YouTube, Google Play, Amazon Prime. Guys, welcome Ross Allison to the show. Ross, thank you for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me.
Man, you got some shit going on in your life here, my friend. That show, you got to tune this in. This show is amazing. Where did you come up with a concept for something like this?
Well, what happened was, gosh, it's been now going on 7 years. A young man had contacted me because they had been experiencing paranormal phenomena. And the story is that he was doing some sheetrocking at an old brothel that has been abandoned for over 30 years. And he was, doing some work there when all of a sudden, when he was alone up there, something groped him. And he couldn't explain the sensation. And he was just like, oh, this is weird. And then a few days later, he started having more of these sexual experiences by something that wasn't there. And so they reached out to me, him and his mother reached out to me and wanted to know, would this be a case I'd be interested in looking into? And having cases like that are a little more unique, but it also is more focused around your own personal experiences. And it really got me thinking is like, well, how do you validate an experience where you're being physically touched in various different ways? Because it's your personal experience.
Right.
Nobody else can validate that but yourself. And so it just really got me thinking. Mm-hmm. And I started wondering, has there been any experiments done that has tried to validate touch? And to my surprise, no one's ever done this. Mm-hmm. And so I was the first to find myself out there trying to come up with experiments that could, somehow, prove that when the subject is having that encounter, that there's something there to prove that it's happening. And so I just, for I think it was like 6 years, I started, playing around with all these different experiments and trying to figure out what I could do. And I was getting a lot of really interesting things. Things were happening, and it just was not enough for me, because I really try to be more scientific in my approach. And so I wanted more. And I had done a radio show with a gentleman, Chad Goodwin, and we got to talking, and we really hit it off. And I told him, I had all these great ideas and what I wanted to do. And so now that I'm doing these experiments, I decided to go back to him because I wanted to see if he might have some ideas. And he was just fascinated with what I was doing. So I said, hey, join me on an experiment and let's see what we can do. And it just kind of took off from there.
All right, now, Chad Goodwin is we get this right, a nanotechnology expert.
Yes.
That's correct? Okay.
He deals with energy, trying to come up with ways of storing energy and using energy. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the guy with the flux capacitor,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
Oh, I popped so hard for that.
Now, the thing that got me, and I mean, this part just completely blew me out of my chair, was you were working with the Spectre Ray, okay?
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know or unfamiliar, that is the Special Paranormal Environmental Computer Tracking Research Equipment.
Yeah, it's a system that we had put together. It's a system that I actually came up with, and I've been using it for over 20 years, and he actually advanced it for the documentary.
That was the part that blew me away because you actually were able to track the entity, the spirit.
Yeah.
You could put him in real time 3D and show what was going on. And I just
Yeah.
Mhm.
First time in history.
bang, that was like here it is in black and white, and that was just amazing. That had to You had to be like on cloud nine when you saw the the
Well, if
result.
you saw the documentary, I was an emotional wreck. I
Good.
was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. You
Yeah.
know, it was just like, I really was crying. And it's just like, it was like, even in the documentary, I try to explain it the best I can, is this overwhelming feeling. It's like I've been working so hard all these years trying to come up with more evidence to validate people's experiences.
Mhm.
And it's frustrating
Mhm.
because most people rely on the media for their education and what's really happening in the paranormal world when they watch a lot of these paranormal shows and don't realize how much the audience is being manipulated.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a
Yeah.
challenge when most people out there have their own ideas and concepts of what ghost hunting is. And again, it
Mhm.
comes from television, really.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like there's so much more being missed. And that's one of the things that, as I have pursued this for so long, over 30 years, um, I had always tried to think outside the box and even try to utilize some of the ideas that were out there.
Right.
Yeah, some good ideas come and go, and but the biggest challenge we have in the paranormal field is a lot of people, paranormal investigators, if you want to call them that, get very bored easily. If they don't get that
Yeah.
instant gratification, they move on to the
Hmm.
next. And to be honest with you guys, ghost hunting, paranormal investigating is very boring. It's a lot of patience. It's a lot of going back. Even if you didn't get something the first time, you still have to go back
Mhm.
again and again. And you may get nothing the first few times until finally you're at the right place at the right time.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And a lot of people don't give
Right.
that enough attention.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
And it's also a lot of over analyzing, you know, um, your EVPs, your footage, all of that stuff. So, and yeah, speaking from experience, I've been in situations where it was just incredibly like it was like watching
Yeah.
grass grow.
or paint dry, as they say too,
Yeah. Yeah. That
Yeah.
always gets
Yeah.
me when
And
they play that EVP that
Mhm.
sounds like somebody gargling mouthwash and go, "Did you hear
right,
that? It said get
Yeah.
out." No, that's not what I
right,
heard.
Yeah.
you know,
And then you've got that level of where you have to distinguish, okay, is this, bad plumbing and loud pipes? Is this, like electrical interference? You gotta run through all of
mold.
these possibilities. And
Black mold can
yep,
affect people, and there's all kinds of different
yep,
things. And you're in a situation now where I hate to say it, but I use the term a lot. It's lazy ghost hunting. A lot of
hmm
people don't want to do the work. Most ghost hunters today, they want the instant gratification that a lot of the bad equipment gives them. And
yep,
that's one of the biggest problems we have is, no one wants to go over, 40 hours of video or audio
Hmm.
that normally you can collect doing an actual investigation. Now they want to depend
yep,
on apps that will tell you right away when the ghost talks to you, if it's the
yep,
ghost. So you got a lot of that happening. And so for me, doing Parasense was a big challenge because I had been documenting these experiments for years. So, going on 6 years before even Chad came into the picture. And it was a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of, going back over and over and over because, again, ghost hunting is all about being at the right place at the right time. You cannot give up so easily just because you're not getting the results that you're hoping to get every time you investigate. It's not like that on TV. Every episode's got great ghosts.
Yeah.
I wish it was like that.
And that's
Believe me. You know?
that's something that David and I have discussed quite a bit about, the hokey shit that comes with, ghost hunters. What is it? That you got ghost hunters. Taps is from my area, so I believe that's Ghost Hunter.
I knew Jason Grant before
Yep.
they had the show. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I-
Because they're from Rhode Island.
Yep.
I want to say they're from Coventry or
Right.
Warwick, something like that.
You're gonna
But
you're gonna talk shit about somebody. Don't mention their name. I can't afford a lawsuit. Okay.
okay.
Can we sign it? Can we play charades?
Yeah, you know the guy.
Sounds like,
The plumbers from Rhode Island. Yeah, clown out in Vegas.
Yeah.
But
And it's like
it's
crazy because we have talked a lot about it and a lot about the misconceptions of what ghost hunting actually is and how the differences between real and exaggerated, I'll say. You know what I mean? So because a lot of the things that you see in these shows, it's from experience, your real encounters aren't like that at all. They can be depending on what you're dealing with, but most of the time they're not so loud and boisterous.
I know. My personal experience, it ran the gambit of annoying to absolutely terrifying. And it was and just everything in between because it after living so long with all this stuff going on around you, you almost become jaded to it, and you almost become used to it at times, to where it's like, knock it off. That's I don't need this right now. Okay, God, that's sorry.
Yes.
All right, there we go. Yeah, right on cue. Here we
Right
go.
on cue there.
Stop talking about us.
But
No.
yeah, that's the thing that so intrigued me about that documentary was that you threw all the bullshit out the window. And I like the way you went through that and built up and showed we tried this experiment, then we tried this experiment, and then we tried to get this. And it's like, yeah, how do you do that? How do you capture that personal, other than somebody sitting there going, something touched me, anybody can do that. But how do you capture that and say, yeah,
right.
And that was amazing. I am just, like I said, I was blown away watching it. I'm a
thank you.
Huge fan.
It's been a lot of years of hard work. And like I said, a lot of trial and error as well. I know the biggest question that a lot of people always ask, why the nudity? And, because it's called the naked experiments. And I always have to explain to people that if you're going to try and prove touch, you need to see what happens to the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
You need to see what's happening to, the skin, the muscles. Is there temperature variances? Is there some sort of pressure that you can see? So those are some of the things that we really had to put out there, and nudity just kind of made sense. It's nothing different than you would see on Naked and Afraid.
Right.
But that was one of the biggest things that, people were kind of thinking it was just a gimmick to have a show. And it's like, no, if I was to give you guys the challenge of trying to prove touch, don't you think that would come across your thought path?
Mm-hmm.
You think like
you have to remove
maybe
Well,
I might want to consider that,
you
you
have to
know.
remove all the variables. And if you have
You
clothing
do,
against your
because
skin, then, something's already touching your skin. So
Yeah.
you have
right,
to
and
figure out a way.
that's the biggest thing. If you're going up against, skepticism, or even others in the scientific field, and if somebody says, "Oh, I felt a hand on my back," and you're wearing a shirt, they're going to say that's, contaminated
Hmm.
evidence.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's nothing to prove there.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
because it could have been the shirt, and I've had those experiences. I've had where I felt something tap me on the shoulder, or put their hand on me, and it's just like I do second guess myself, because it's like,
Mhm.
was it my clothes? Was it my jacket? And if
Yeah.
they're
Right.
naked, if I had been naked, then I'd be like, well, what the hell was that?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Exactly. You remove those variables, you remove those
Mhm.
barriers, then that leaves just it can only be this. There,
And people also don't understand too. The skin is the largest sensing organ of our body.
Hmm.
And so think about how many missed
Mhm.
opportunities there have been throughout your ghost hunting experience, where something did touch you and you didn't feel it
right.
because you were
Yep.
wearing clothes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So there's
That's very
another
true.
opportunity there as well.
It's interesting because it was almost a little triggering for me. I'm not even going to lie. Um, I've seen people be touched and never where their clothing is. It's always where the skin's showing, where they end up with bruises.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I myself have been in a situation um, in the shower somewhere and came out with scratches, you know. So it's like
Mhm.
it makes a lot of
Same.
sense. My question though is how did you go about finding people to participate in this? Was it something that you had a couple of people that you knew who were interested, or because I gotta think the way that I see it is, people who even people who are interested in this, it's got to be a little intimidating
All
to
right.
them. You know what I mean? Because they're completely vulnerable, being nude, and they're also dealing with the study of the paranormal.
Right.
So
Well,
how did you go about
Mhm.
getting
well,
volunteers?
like that young man that I had talked about that kind of introduced me to his personal experiences. Luckily,
Hmm.
when I had brought up the idea of, because for me, using him as a subject, or my first subject, I should say, made sense,
Hmm.
because obviously he was a target for these
Hmm.
advancements.
Yeah.
So I just asked him. I said, "Hey, what do you think about, sitting naked in a room, and we will put cameras on you and equipment around you, and see what happens?" And
Yeah.
to my surprise, he was all for it. So I was lucky there. Then, as people that have known me for as long as I have and know how serious I am, this was not a pervy thing just to get naked people in places. This was
Yeah.
real science. I wanted to validate these experiences.
Right.
Other people
Hmm.
trusted me and were willing to do it as well. To be honest, getting women was a challenge, and still is a challenge sometimes, because I
Hmm.
do want to have the different sexes and the experiences, but I can understand the intimidation, especially for a woman getting naked in front of a few guys. So that's why we always have a female. If we have a female subject, we always have a female on the team,
Hmm.
to make sure that the female can actually take care of her needs or whatever it is. Because one of the things that we also do is we have to look over the subject, make sure there's no
Yeah.
prior marks or on their body, so that, again, to use that as
Mhm.
proof if something shows
Yeah.
up. And as you saw in the documentary, it happens.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right.
Now,
So
are you still conducting
what was
these
that?
experiments? Are you still conducting these
Oh
experiments?
yeah, yeah, it's
Like,
not over.
do
We're
okay.
just, as we say it in the documentary, we're just scratching the surface.
Hmm.
That's the frustrating thing with a lot of people's perception of ghost hunting. They think they can go into a place, pull out the spirit box, and they've solved the mystery within a few hours
Yeah.
of what's going on there. And it's not like that.
Right.
Sometimes
Mhm.
it could take us years
Mm-hmm.
of constantly going back to a location, just to get, just snippets of information of who or why they may be haunting a location.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So this research is not done. We've started filming the second one, and continuing on with this, trying to validate these experiences. And luckily, with Chad, he's constantly, I come up with these great ideas, and he's helping me to advance it, so that we can actually have data to validate these experiences.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So what? I guess the only other question: what's next? Where you go without spilling the beans too much? What's next on
Yeah.
the agenda?
Well, one of the things that I really wanted to try and do is that documentary was more of our origin story, introducing me to the audience, introducing Chad to the audience, and seeing
Mhm.
how we work as a team. Because, as I said, I've been doing this for well over 7 years now, and there is so much data that we collected that we couldn't fit into the documentary.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I've come up with well over 100 experiments, and I think we've only
Wow.
used what, 3 or 4 of them in the documentary. So there's so much. In fact, we even did a teaser on one of the experiments that I came up with, called the puppet. That's the
Yes.
one.
That I thought was.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
taking elastic
Yeah.
string and attaching it to the sensitive parts of the body, and then stretching that elastic string to various
Mm-hmm.
parts of the room, it extends your nervous system. So if anything
Yes.
is moving around the room as you're sitting there perfectly still, if anything passes through that elastic, string, we were hoping that you'd feel something, vibrations or a pulling, and that was happening.
Mhm.
And it's
Right.
just like, okay, again, it's happening. People are feeling the string being pulled. They're feeling the vibrations. So what do you do with that information? Again, it's still a personal encounter. I cannot prove that you're feeling that sensation, right? So
Mhm.
that's the challenge that we're up
Right.
against.
Yeah.
So that's the
Mm-hmm.
nice thing that we're doing, working with Chad, is now he knows I have this experiment where we need to measure the tension of the string. And so
Mhm.
that's where he can actually bring in the data.
Mhm.
We're working on
Yeah.
devices now where we can actually, use that elastic string, but now at the end of that elastic string is a sensor. And so now you can actually see if there is a
Okay.
vibration, if there is a tugging on it. So now that
Mhm.
validates what you're experiencing, because now there's data.
Mhm.
So that's how we are taking each and every episode as we, bring them together, is we're trying to advance the technology with these experiments
Mhm.
that I come up with.
And I think that's why it it grabbed me and fascinated me so much, is because it wasn't like, okay, did you hear that? That was a ghost. Come on,
Right,
show me something that I haven't seen, guys. Prove something to me, and you did. You walked in and you said, boom. Here it is. Here is hard
Yeah.
data that we've captured this stuff. It is there. It is real. And if you walk away from this saying there's no such thing for ghosts, you're the fool. Because there it is.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's just laid out, and it is just
Mm-hmm.
absolutely fascinating how you have pulled the technology in to prove that you know
right,
this is
and
a real thing. This is a part of our real world. It's not just something
right.
people
Mhm.
are imagining, or sorry about that, or crazy people are thinking they see.
And that's still a challenge alone, because most people like yourselves have been jaded by watching a lot of these bad television shows, have seen the fakery, have seen the lies and deception, that happens. And so we still have to, combat against that as well, because people don't know me personally.
Mhm.
So they don't know, my credibility and how long I've been fighting to bring credibility to this field. So I hope people will give it a chance, and know that we're being open and honest with everybody with our approach. We are trying to make everything as transparent as possible. We learn from our own mistakes too, because when you do an experiment one way, you realize, oh, we should have done it this way
Right.
to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how science
Mhm.
works.
Mhm.
It is trial and error. It's all, taking this idea and making it better each and every time you do it. So you got the information that validates this experience.
Mhm. That is, like I said, it's absolutely fascinating what you're doing, and it.
Mm-hmm. The coolest thing to me was the black holes in the
Oh
auras.
yeah.
That was insane. And the fact that, you would see in the footage these people who their space was invaded, so you would see it manifest,
Right.
within, oh my God, that was
And that was the
that was
first
the
time
thing.
that's ever been done too. Because
That was so cool.
yeah, and that was how I think, it's just one of those things, is like, how do you bring the
Mhm.
invisible world into our vision?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
no one's ever used the, aura photography for technology and ghost hunting.
Right.
It's always
Hmm.
been used for people's own personal, experiences and how to read their own auras, their energy. But
Yeah.
what's happening when you're in a haunted location and something else comes into your environment? Can that be
Yeah.
seen? And yes, it can.
Mhm.
you
Right.
know
It
That's
can. It can now. Definitely.
You know what I want to see? I want to see someone do because you know how they do sleep studies.
hmm
I want to see someone do a sleep study as far as the paranormal goes. Just because, and that's strictly personally for me. Um, I there's a thing called onriomancy, which is it's technically the divination through dreams. Um,
hmm
but myself as well as others who have or the ability to do this, um, they can communicate with spirits or whatever. And I know that my experiences with it are 100% real. um, I have a insanely crazy story about one where it literally came to fruition in my everyday life. Um, but it would be really interesting to see a study done, like a sleep study with the paranormal in that aspect. But even then, how would you even prove that? Because that's not a physical thing,
Right.
that's all mental.
Right.
It's not like with what you do as far as the changes in the human body. It'd be interesting to see the changes in the mind, what happens. But again, how do you prove that? Because
Right.
they very well could just be crazy or having a wild dream,
Right.
you know?
And then dreams
But
are
they can
fascinating
prove.
alone. You know.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They can, but they can prove, lucid dreaming.
Right. Right.
There's, I believe, scientific evidence behind astral projection. So if you can measure all of that stuff with science, there eventually there should be a way to be
Well,
able to
even
measure it.
if you were able to do that, then that opens the door to, is it more psychic phenomenon? Because that's a whole nother
True.
realm to the paranormal that we still don't have all the
Mhm.
answers to. A lot of people
Yeah.
think that ghosts are just psychic projections. Well, one of the things
Mhm.
that we proved with Parasense is when folks have told us, that a lot of times when they physically feel something on them, that they're projecting it onto themselves. Well,
Mhm.
Parasense has proven now that being able to track the phenomena, that something came out of nowhere, attacked the subject and then left. If we
Yeah,
are projecting it from ourselves, you would see it come from yourself and then come back to you.
Mhm.
And that's
that's
assuming,
true.
and that makes sense. If you're throwing energy
Yeah.
out there, that energy would come back, right?
Yes.
Then how do you
Yes.
explain something coming from
Hmm.
nowhere, tagging the subject, and then leaving? We
Yeah.
captured that
Mhm.
twice.
Hmm.
So that
That's amazing.
validates that there is something outside of us, that there is
Hmm.
an energy that we can't explain, be it ghosts, then it's ghosts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But something is physically touching individuals.
Hmm.
So that was amazing. That's the
Right.
thing that brought tears to my eyes. It's like, oh my god, we just proved something.
Well,
So and talking about the sleep experiments, when we were doing the brothel, I actually would have guys spend the night in the brothel and they'd sleep naked on the beds. They still have the
Oh
original
wow.
beds from back in the day. Yeah. So there
Oh
was,
my
and I
goodness.
haven't been able to use it, but one of those experiments, a young man was awoken in the middle of the night by something fondling him. And you can see it on the camera, something's moving it around.
wow.
Oh
And
my
yeah,
gosh.
and it's just like, I gotta blur that. How can I prove it?
Yeah, I know. Oh my
The
gosh.
uncensored version.
You should, something that should 100%
Yeah.
be a thing. Like if you want to see the proof, you
It's a possibility, but that's just some of the things that I experienced. But yet, I was limited on what I could put out there.
I know. You bet you should start an
Yeah,
OnlyFans
there you go.
for the uncensored
The
versions.
directors.
There you go.
So, so do you feel that with the different type of entities, so like they say with like
Mhm.
succubuses and poltergeists, do you feel that with the different types that some have stronger energies, so they're able to be able to actually make contact? Do you feel there's a
I
difference
think the
between
data is
the
still
entities and
not there
that?
yet. We don't have enough data to identify
Okay.
what they're encountering. Um,
Hmm.
for me, I've always tried to express to
Okay.
people, we need to go with what we know and not with what we think we know. And
Hmm.
it's hard when a lot of people come into the
Right.
paranormal field wanting or knowing they can identify different types of entities. And
Hmm.
for me, it's like, that's great, that you want to pursue it that way, but I have to strip it down to the simplest form. We know
Yeah.
people get touched. All right. I can't
Right.
tell you if it's a succubus, if it's a female
Hmm.
spirit or a male spirit, or any of that information. We don't have that data. But I can
Hmm.
tell you people are being touched.
Right.
You know, we're still working on more information. We need more data. And if that data
Yeah.
says yes, it's a succubus, then then I can say, yeah, it's a succubus. But right now, all I can tell you is there's
Mhm.
something out there touching people, or physically interacting with individuals.
Now
That I can tell you.
there's several different ways that people, including myself, view the spirits, the paranormal, the entities. Um, some of them see them as it's the spirit of dead people coming back, trying to communicate,
Hmm.
um, or it's thin veils
Mm.
in the walls of the dimensions where people are, passing in and out, and are able to just for a brief instant touch one another. What do you feel? I mean, where do you stand on all of that? Because I know what my
I
personal beliefs are. I don't think it's dead people. I'm sorry.
hmm
I don't
hmm
think you.
No, and
I
that's
don't think
fine.
you die. I really don't. You may lose the
Me.
shell, but that energy carries on. That
Hmm.
little bit of spirit or whatever you want to call it that you carries on, and it goes someplace else to live and carry
Oh, I
on
see
its
where you're
life
going with that.
there,
Okay.
just not here any longer. So
Hmm.
and I think to me there's lots of thin spots, between those two areas where people are bouncing around inside the circle of time, and they just happen to cross paths, in that moment, or that.
Right.
So, what's your take on that?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I keep an open mind, and I always have. I would like to believe in the popular belief of ghosts, what a ghost is. I've heard a lot of credible, stories and from credible witnesses that say they've been visited by their loved ones, and so for me, I would like to believe that. I lost my great grandmother who I was very close with, and I have yet to have that encounter with her. I would hope that, if she had the ability, that she would, somehow communicate to me. And what little experiences that I would like to think was her, I could easily just say that was the psychological, element of me wanting that communication with her. So this is
Right.
where the challenge does
Mm-hmm.
lie in being a paranormal investigator, is you do have to put your own personal beliefs to the side.
Mm-hmm.
I can't bring religion into this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say, oh, this is demons or this is succubus, because that is all a level of a belief system.
Yeah.
um, I just want to know
Right.
the ones and zeros. I want to be able to validate your guys' encounters. When you say that you've been touched, I would love to be able to validate that. When you believe that you saw your great grandmother visit you in your room,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be able to have the technology and the ways to be able to validate that for you. That's my goal. That's how I pursue
Hmm.
this. um I don't have all the answers. Who does?
Right.
I know there's a lot of egos out there, people who claim they know everything. But let's be honest, we really don't have all the
Right.
answers. A lot of us are chasing our own belief system. And as I said in the very beginning, you kind of have to go with what you know and not with what you think you know or what you want to believe
Hmm.
is out there. That's where we fail the paranormal field, is because there are far too many assumptions being told or being used as proof to the paranormal.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help us. When you have far too many people, I hate to say it, the liars, the egos out there, telling you, fake stories and showing you fake evidence, that only muddies up the water for us. That just leads
Yep.
us down far too many dead end roads.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a true paranormal investigator, you need the true raw data to understand what the paranormal is really capable of.
Hmm.
And if you're running down roads of fake stories and bad evidence and all that stuff, you're not going anywhere.
Right. Right.
It's just leading you to a dead end.
Yeah. And there's
So
so so many times when I'm a big believer in the power of suggestion.
mhm.
You can convince, and this is a salesman in me. You can convince anybody to buy a dog turd. If you paint it purple and play it up enough, they're going to buy it. Um,
Oh yeah.
so, and it was just today, as a matter of fact, I was watching a video. And on it was a Reels video, I think it was, and they were going through some tunnel in the Appalachian Mountains, just driving through the tunnel, reportedly haunted. Well, that right there is planting a seed. You're now people are on high alert for any little thing,
Mm-hmm.
any little thing. So there's a lot of seed planting out there with these guys and with these stories, So that's one of the things that I try to watch out for, is that people suggesting things that may not be, 100% real, and you get that a lot on those.
Well, and then not just the television shows. We're talking about also the online media shows on YouTube and other online outlets as well. Is you got a lot of those
Mhm.
fakers out there that, you know, will put a place out there that just because it looks creepy and run down, oh, it's got to be haunted.
Mm-hmm.
And now,
Mhm.
anytime, as you said, anytime anybody goes out there, they're going to experience paranormal phenomena because they want to believe it's haunted.
Exactly.
But for
Yep.
me to now, because I hear it's haunted, all these
Mhm.
people have, you know, gone in there, so that they've experienced paranormal phenomena. Now I could be wasting my time because it's not haunted, going back there multiple times and never getting any data.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
that's where it kind of sucks for me, because that's a lot of wasted time where I could have put more of that energy into a place there was true paranormal phenomena reported, and being able to
Mhm.
collect the data that we need.
Yeah.
That happens a lot,
Oh yeah. Yeah. People,
Yeah.
you know?
they want to find they want to find something. They push themselves to find that something. So, like I said, there's a lot of times every little thing they're going to buy that in, into it. And it's just,
Hmm.
what's the one thing? What's if you could pick out one thing in your career, what's that one thing that really was over the top for you that you will never forget to this day? That just set you back on your heels.
Besides Parasense,
Besides Parasite, outside of
doing all that research, you know, yeah. In fact, this is where we share that common investigation with the Bel Air House. The Bel Air House is one of the places
Oh,
that
okay.
I actually had one of my most interesting experience, I should say. Um, so, for those who aren't familiar with the Bel Air House, it's notorious for what they, and I hate to use the term, but they call it the rape room, because many
okay.
females have been
Mm-hmm.
physically attacked in that room, or from the one of the owners that lived there. So
Mhm.
that's where that story comes from, and other people have claimed it as well. So I was invited out there because I was a guest speaker at a paranormal conference that was being held in the area. And so I was flown out. I was the first to arrive. And so they picked me up at the airport and they took me to the Bel Air house, and they put me up there to stay there for, I think it was like for one night. And then we were being moved to another location because they were going to open up the Bel Air
Mm-hmm.
house for for the guests that were going to participate in the conference. So they just
Mhm.
gave us an opportunity to stay there before everybody else, you know, showed up for there. So I was not really familiar with the Bel Air house. I don't watch a lot of the shows, just to be honest with you guys. And I know it's appeared on quite a few paranormal shows. So my first night there was kind of uneventful
Mm-hmm.
because I really didn't know anything about this information. All I just know it's a haunted house they put me up in. Now my other two friends, Dave and David, they were scheduled to show up a little bit later. Well, Dave ended up having car trouble. He was having problems with one of his tires. It was leaking air. And so he was not able to get to the airport to pick up David in a reasonable amount of time. He had to pull over like every 30 miles just to put air back in the tire. So he was dealing with that. So this left me alone in the house quite a long time. And I,
Mhm.
to pass the time, I just kind of did a live video feed, walking around through the house, doing my own little thing. But anyways, I know this runs into a little bit of a longer story than it needs to be, but we ended up, they showed up, and that next day, um, Dave needed to get his car taken care of. So he had, of course, fill up his tire. And so he's got it in the driveway. He's, getting the tire, putting air in the tire. He comes into the house, and he's sitting on the chair. And I happen to look out the dining room window, and there's Dave's car leaving the driveway. And I'm like, Dave, your car, your car. I'm thinking somebody is stealing his car because,
Oh.
he's got a nice little, hot rod car. And he, runs past me out there, and the
Uh-huh.
car runs right into a tree.
oh,
Apparently, he said the emergency brake was on. He doesn't know how it happened, but his car just rolled right into a tree.
Yeah.
And so we had to deal with that. But anyways, so we go to a different place. Now throughout the weekend, I'm hearing about all these crazy things that have happened at the Bel Air house. And so now after the event, we had an extra day.
Mm-hmm.
And so they decided, let's go back to the Bel Air house. And I'm like, okay, I'm a little more excited because I know now a little bit more about this place. Well, these guys, they like to investigate alone. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
normally don't like to investigate alone because for safety reasons and also for credibility reasons. If something's to happen, I like to have somebody there to validate that experience as well. But as long as there's cameras on you, I guess I'm fine with it. And
Right.
that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to put a bunch of cameras on me and leave me alone. And so they put me in the rape room. All right. Now, I now know all the stuff about this place. So it could be
Mm.
psychological or I'm not sure. But, anyways, for the first time in my career, when I was alone in that room, I could not shake the feeling of I don't want to be here. I really don't want to be here.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of making me mad. I'm like, why am I feeling this? I've been in the spookiest, scariest places all over the world, and I've never had an issue with this before. But this one time, I just could not shake that feeling. And also, too, the house had been, locked up for the day, and it was very hot. So the room was really, really hot.
Oh.
And so I'm sweating bullets. I'm in this room. I can't shake this feeling. But, the guys are downstairs. They're expecting me, to do my
Mm-hmm.
thing, and then they'll take turns and do their thing. So
Mhm.
I'm in the room trying to communicate with whatever's there. And I happen to ask, can you give me a sign that you're there? Something. And shortly after I'd asked that, the thermal camera flew off the tripod.
Oh
And,
my
and
God.
I screamed. I did scream. I didn't run away, but it caught me off guard. So there is a video of me screaming. And they heard it. And of course, they ran upstairs, checking on me. What's going on? What's wrong? What's wrong? And I said, the thermal camera flew off the tripod. So, Dave fixed the camera. He's like, I don't know how this could have happened and all this stuff. And so he finally, fixes the camera and everything's reset and ready to go. And he's like, well, do you want to keep going? Or do you want to take a break? And I'm thinking, I'm a little intrigued, but I still got that feeling. And that, having that experience, kind of heightened it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided to give it another go. Because now, I just witnessed physical phenomena. I want to see what else can happen. So they go back downstairs, and I can hear the front door open and shut. So I'm now alone in this room. I just experienced physical phenomena, and I still got that feeling, that I can't shake. And now I'm a little concerned about my safety because I know what has happened in this room, and I'm thinking,
Mhm.
okay, I don't know if I'm safe in this environment. So I yell downstairs to the guys, to get their attention, because I just want to make sure if anything happens, they're right there. So I yell. I'm yelling for them, no
Mm-hmm.
response. And I'm starting to scream their names. Still no response. And I'm probably screaming louder than I actually screamed, that got their attention in the first place. And they're not
Mhm.
responding. And I'm thinking, great. They actually
Right.
went outside because I heard the front door open and close. So they went outside to leave me completely alone in the house. And now they can't hear me if I'm yelling for help. So I pulled
Mhm.
out my cell phone. I put it off of,
Ooh.
airplane mode. And I actually, started texting, David, and as soon as I sent the text, I then can hear David downstairs going, "Are you okay?" I'm like, what the hell? I was just screaming for these guys.
Oh.
And so he comes upstairs and I said, "Did you not hear me screaming for your guys' attention, your names and stuff?" He's like, "No, we didn't hear anything." I'm like, "How could you not hear me?"
Oh, wow.
And so I was just like a little, shaken up by that. So I was like, okay, you know what? I think I do need a break, you know? So I go outside and I'm standing in the driveway The room where it all happens is, above me, and I can actually hear Dave. He went into the room and he's doing his thing. And he's yelling at whatever's in there because he believes that whatever's in there was responsible for his car rolling into the tree. And he's blaming, the ghost, yelling at it. Oh my God, and I can hear all this happening. So I switch over to, Facebook Live, and I'm filming, all this happening. And I'm, trying to calm down. I'm explaining what I just went through. And I'm probably on, Facebook Live for, like 10, 15 minutes. And all of a sudden, David comes around the corner on the porch and goes, "Oh, there you are." I'm like, "Yeah, I've been here the whole time." He's like, "Did you not hear Dave, calling and screaming for you?" I was like, "No, I didn't hear anything." Apparently, when Dave was in the room, doing he had some strange feeling that there was something bad going to happen to me. And so he was running around the house trying to find me, yelling throughout the house. He said he even went onto the front porch and was calling out my name, but he didn't see me because I was around the corner. I was in the driveway. And so he's even said that he went outside calling my name, and the whole time I heard nothing. I was even doing Facebook Live, and everybody's like, "No, we heard nothing."
How could you even begin to explain that?
So that for me was just,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Really.
Yeah.
Wow. So your experience was, it sounds kind of similar to when I was there. So I went there with Steve Huff, and he did a seance, but the energy there is so strong. It's palpable. And we were sitting at the table. We had a group of people, and all of a sudden it felt like I've never had a heart attack, but just severe pain shot straight through my chest. And I looked over, and Steve Huff clutched. We had to walk outside because, it was so painful, and it was so hard to breathe. And, you had mentioned about the thermal,
That's all right.
sorry, I'm trying to, yeah, sorry. So when we were there, all the thermal cameras immediately died like that. And I think a tripod ended up getting knocked over. Just a bunch of stuff happened with the cameras. Every time they would try and turn them on, they would turn right back off. And then, people got shoved. Like a lot of stuff happened there. So yeah,
Well,
that
for
does not
me, it was
surprise
just
me
that
with
first
what
time
you were saying,
witnessing
your
that
story.
manipulation of somehow not being able to hear when somebody was in distress. That to me that was weird. Like there's like they have some sort of ability to, cloud that information to block you from hearing, somebody screaming for help.
Man, that's wow. That would be so insane,
Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
had
remember going through.
a long time.
I was
that'd be very terrifying.
I was like,
Very
oh my God, I
terrifying.
was really little. I was probably 6 or 7, and sorry, hold on. Yeah, so I was probably like 6 or. I've never met anybody who's said that something kind of almost like created like a sound barrier there. But anyone else, I've never heard that from. But I remember, and the memory is so vivid. I was probably like 6 or 7. I'm 33 now. But I was at my grandparents' house and sleeping, and I woke up and there was something in the spare bedroom across the hall, and I was looking directly at it. My bedroom door was open, like the bedroom door was open, but I was so scared that all I did was scream. And I managed to get enough courage to run downstairs, but I screamed the whole way down the stairs. When I finally found my grandparents, they turned around and, they're like, "What's the matter?" I was like, "You didn't hear me screaming for like 5 minutes upstairs?" They never heard me. They didn't hear me
Wow.
until I was coming down the stairs screaming, and that the memory, there's so much more to it, but it for the story's sake, the
Right.
sound, that's where I'm
That's
going
Mhm.
with
another
it.
thing.
But yeah, I've never met anybody else who has had that a similar experience like that.
And that would fall
And
under
so for
another one of those
me,
senses that how do you, how the hell would you measure that?
and that's
I'm
exactly
so
what I was
sick.
going to say. It's like for me, that's intriguing. It's like, how do
Mhm.
you prove that phenomena?
Yeah,
What is there to measure? You know?
Hmm.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. No, that it's crazy
Yeah.
like that. I've had similar stories with whether it's seeing something in a mirror, seeing someone being touched. We have my sister and I, for whatever reason, when we're together, whatever energy, paranormal energy is around, it kicks up when we're together tenfold. We've talked about that on this show before. Um, and we um we ended up going to lad school, which I don't know if any of you know what lad school is. Lad school was in Rhode Island. It was insane asylum, but they would lock anybody up in there, and it closed down in I want to say the 80s or early 90s, and it was turned into a school, like an actual school. Um, but we went investigating, and there was nothing there, and my sister got physically pushed down the stairs, and she had handprints all over her. I
Wow.
don't even know what's left standing in that area, but I mean, they performed a lot of heinous experiments, and
I bet.
you know treated them awful. But again, that's another place too, and it kind of plays on what David was saying, power of suggestion as well, although I can't explain that, my sister being pushed and all of that, and handprints. But um once it was closed down and abandoned, of course everyone's like, it's haunted, it's haunted, it's haunted. So it's like, you know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah,
Well, it definitely has a perfect recipe for being haunted. That's for sure.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and actually, I had two aunts who were institutionalized there, great aunts who were institutionalized there, and because of them, and I mean they're still living, but because of them, we know firsthand what would happen,
Right. And you always have stories of
over there. So,
the
Right.
atrocities
Right.
that happened at mental
hmm
institutions in the
yep.
early days, and what they put those people through. That is a horror story in and of itself. Um,
Right.
Yeah, you know how many there were so many
Yeah.
patients, and I know we're getting off subject here, but there were in mental institutions. They believed the cure for hysteria with women was actually like rape, orgasms, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So doctors would rape
Mhm.
these patients.
Yep.
It was awful.
hmm. Well, guys,
Crazy. The
Mhm.
I'm
world's
going to
crazy.
jump in here. Excuse me. Our time is just about up. This has been more than fascinating, and I think we could go on and on. Ross, I'm going to just go ahead and ask, would you
Yes.
please come back again sometime and talk with us
Oh,
more
you
on
bet.
this subject? We would absolutely love to have you. But we are going to call it a night,
Yes.
so
Yes.
this old man can go to bed because it's late for me. But I want to say again, thank you, Ross. Do you have anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to plug here at the last minute of what's coming up?
Well, I definitely want to encourage people if they get a chance, do check out Parasense. And we'd love to have reviews. Reviews really do help to push it up there, get it tagged with a lot more other ghost shows when they're searching for anything else
Okay.
because, we have to self promote it ourselves. So
Mhm.
reviews really do help with that. So definitely take the time and do a review for it. Um, Also, too, I always encourage people to check out my books. I got 10 published books out there. You can find those on Amazon as well under Ross Allison. I do a haunted series with David Weatherly as well. So we got about 5 books for that, and we're still working on others. So check that out. If you're in the Seattle area, definitely check out our tours and our Death Museum. We have a collection of haunted objects and also of death memorabilia as well, like from Victorian mourning jewelry to mourning dresses, embalming equipment, all kinds of fun stuff. So check that out. And then follow me on Facebook. You can look up Ross Allison Ghost Hunter, and I do a lot of live feeds from a lot of places that I visit all over the world for ghost hunting, and usually try to be pretty good at keeping that up to date. When it comes to social media, that's the one.
Any more you have, but
I know it's remembering passwords and all that crap. Like, oh my god,
it's a nightmare. Yeah, because I've got mine, I've got my business, I've got the podcast, so I've got 100,000 different passwords I've got to keep track.
I know, that's just crazy.
All right, well, guys, we are going to call it a night. We're going to get out of here. As always, Audra, thank you so much. I know you have been having a hard time here, but you held it together and you made it through the show, and we appreciate it. Appreciate you very much. Alexis, as always, this is twice I've seen you today. I caught her off guard this afternoon. She came shopping, and I said, well, I'll talk to you tonight. She turned around and looked at me and went,
Yes.
huh? The podcast? No.
Oh, well, I thought it was still Saturday, to be fair.
We are going to get out of here, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, guys, keep it spooky. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
And for Transcending Veils merch, go to teespring.com/Transcending Veils Podcast.
All right, guys, you know the deal. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, feel free to email us at transcendingveils@gmail.com. Also, be sure to follow Transcending Veils on social media platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't be afraid to swing by D.E. Riley and myself's personal Instagrams at NotReallyWilly and at AudraMoon_. We got some spooky stuff going on there too. So until the next episode, can't wait to hear from you guys.